End of an era. The Danaher Death Squad has broken up. Here's what you need to know. In John Danaher's social media post that he released today, he mentioned that there was 4 key contributing factors as to why the team is no longer going to exist as a unified training and competitive team. Those factors are disputes in the physical location of their future school, personality conflicts, value conflicts between the members, and probably the biggest one is the inevitable tension between the Danaher Death Squad as a brand and the individual members and their own personal brands, particularly as the Death Squad has grown in notoriety, popularity, and inevitably value. So too do the value, notoriety, and popularity of the individual members increase. Let's tackle each of the key contributing factors in turn, and we're starting with location. Now, most people online, particularly in the Reddit sphere, are attributing the majority of the reason the Danaher Death Squad broke up to being location, but I personally don't think that's necessarily the case. If you know and have followed the Danaher Death Squad, you know that they've been living in Puerto Rico for the last 12 months. The reason they moved to Puerto Rico was to avoid the COVID restrictions and COVID in general that was happening in New York City, and for a lower income tax. And thirdly, the ADCC for 2022's coordinator, Mo, and a good friend of the Danaher Death Squad, was living in Puerto Rico and is still living in Puerto Rico now. So he was able to help them get established in Puerto Rico and was a good point of contact there. It is pretty well known and public knowledge at this point that John Danaher and Gordon Ryan, at least those 2 members of the Death Squad, are moving to Austin, Texas. Flow Grappling headquarters and the Who's Number 1 Jiu-Jitsu events are held in Austin, Texas. They're going to be closer to their main promoter, being Flow Grappling, as well as Joe Rogan. John Danaher, Craig Jones, and Gordon Ryan, 3 of the key players, are all recent guests on the Joe Rogan Experience. So it's huge exposure. Not to mention Lex Fridman podcast, which is also in Texas. And John Danaher was a recent guest on the Lex Fridman podcast as well. So there's huge media opportunity for the team in Austin, Texas. Nicky Rod actually mentioned that the team was planning or thinking about moving to Texas in a seminar that he did when he was stateside during the most recent Road to ADCC Super Fight. He mentioned that the team was thinking about moving to Texas.
When are y'all opening y'all's gym?
I have no idea.
No. Okay.
Yeah, we might move here in a couple months, and we might get stranded on the island. So I have no idea.
Not only that, but Joe Rogan himself let slip that Danaher was planning to move to Texas in one of his most recent episodes, 1683, featuring Andrew Huberman. So here's the rub. If location was the primary factor as to why the Death Squad is splitting apart, one would speculate that wouldn't that have been an issue when they moved to Puerto Rico, or even before they moved to Puerto Rico? That was always temporary. The team was always planning to move to Texas at some point. It was just put on hold because of COVID. So let's move on to the elephant in the room, personality conflicts. So the rumor mill in the jiu-jitsu sphere has been spinning up about this, and all fingers point to Gordon Ryan. Gordon Ryan being the personality that he is online, the epic internet troll, all fingers are pointing to him as one of the key contributing personality conflicts in the Death Squad. I'm not sure if I believe it. I think that it's going to come out in the wash exactly who is to blame or which members of the Death Squad weren't getting along. But needless to say, the team has been together cohesively for such a long time. They're a team of champions. There's bound to be some tension. And I honestly think that Nicky Ryan will also be moving to Texas to follow his brother. It makes sense. So what about the other members of the team? When it comes to Nicky Rod, it's anyone's guess. There are rumors that he wants to move back to Jersey, but realistically, he probably never wanted to leave Jersey in the first place. But if location was an issue for him, he probably wouldn't have gone to Puerto Rico. Let's talk about Craig Jones. The Australian OnlyFans superstar is most likely going to be following John and Gordon to Austin. Now, there's a couple different reasons for this speculation. Firstly, unless Craig really wanted to return to Australia, he's going to have a hard time getting into the country because of the current COVID restrictions at the moment. If you're not aware, Australia has had a recent COVID outbreak from the Delta variant of COVID, and everything's locked down. Even if Craig got into the country, he would have a very, very difficult time leaving the country. So assuming that Australia is off the cards, he's most likely going to follow Gordon and John Danaher to Austin. Craig Jones is also married and his wife lives in the States. Craig also just received a United States green card, which effectively enables him to come and go as he pleases out of the States and have less restrictions imposed onto someone that's on something like a working holiday visa or just a general holiday visa for the States. So is he gonna leave America? Most likely not. And returning to Australia is probably off the cards because of COVID restrictions anyway. When it comes to Garry Tonon, the speculation on Reddit is that he'll be leaving the squad to pursue MMA. As you're probably aware, Garry is on the rise in his MMA career through ONE FC, but what some people are forgetting is that John Danaher is Garry Tonon's striking coach as well as his jiu-jitsu coach. So is he going to leave his striking and jiu-jitsu coach when he's in the peak of his rise in MMA? That's to be determined. But the speculation is that he'll be leaving to join another MMA specific team. Who knows? Now, according to some Reddit users and the speculation out there, the biggest reason that the Danaher Death Squad broke up was because of money. The reason is, and the finger has been pointed at Gordon Ryan for this, that Gordon has been pushing out other members of the Danaher Death Squad from having ownership of the school that they're planning to create. And this would sort of be alluded to by John Danaher in his social media post, where he mentions that there is conflict in the team between the Danaher Death Squad as a brand and the individual members of the Death Squad and their growing personal brands. So at the end of the day, this is probably all about money. Enjoyed this video and the summary of what we know so far about the Danaher Death Squad breaking up. Feel free to give a thumbs up on the video and leave a comment on your speculation. What do you think's going on? Thanks for watching.